Yeah, yeah, yeah. Transition. Yeah. Yeah, sure. This on? Okay. Well, welcome everyone today to UQCS, week 5 of UQCS. Today we have the career launchpad. We've got Masham and Zain here at the front to run us through on how to get a internship and grad program. So let you guys do your thing.
Hello, and here's my podcast. Alright, well, I'll let you go first.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming today. I'm Sean. Just a bit about myself today. I'm in my final year of computer science. I am a student, which is the superior way to go about it for me. I guess some of my past experiences, I interned at Amazon last year, and I'm president of another club here at UQ, and I dabble in a bit of exchange as well. Anything to say?
Hey everyone, I'm Zain. I'm in my second year of computer science and economics, and I major in ML and quantitative analysis. I interned at TEAS last year, which is a mining company as a data science intern. It was one of the 6 offers I got last year, so I chose to go with that. And this year, I'm just prepping for quants interviews as hard as they are. So I'll be more talking about the HFT side of things for today.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to be moving across the screen to switch the slides, but I guess we'll start. So over here we have the tech landscape. So we're just gonna start off with an overview of what companies you can see. And I'm going to be going through the software engineering roles specifically, whereas Zain will be going through the IT roles. I'll probably go down my tier list first. FYI, this is like very subjective and everyone thinks differently, but this is my take on what the tier list is. So with the tech landscape, we'll go more deep into it in the further slides. But generally speaking, you have tier one, which is generally big tech, which is described as this acronym FANGULA. So Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Uber, LinkedIn, and Airbnb. Then you go down tier two, Atlassian, Canvas, Zero, Oracle, Mantel Group, and Immutable. Tier three, Commonwealth Bank, Telstra, Deloitte, Accenture. And then tier four and beyond, we go into like government, early stage startups, and non-SLE centered roles. And we'll go more into that in a little bit. So,
Alright, so in the agency space, in T1, you have the firms you're mostly heard of. So you've got Jane Street, Citadel, IMC, Optiva, and there's some of the overseas firms that are like more prestigious than those firms, like Millennium, Two Sigma. So with these firms, they're the creme of the crop, high salaries, hardest to get in, the most round of interviews you have to go through, very strict selection process to get into those firms. That's for both trading, research, and software engineering. And then tier two, they're still just as hard, just like less capital than the top firms. So you've got Flow Traders, The Shore, VivCorp, Jump Trading. So for Flow Traders and The Shore, they're overseas. So The Shore, I think, is in the United States, and Flow Traders is in Hong Kong. VivCorp is here in Sydney, and in terms of compensation and I guess the amount of rounds you have to go through, it's less than the top firms, but you still kind of go through the same experience. The culture is also a little bit different. So the top firms, they're renowned for the pressure they put you through and the high turnover rates, except for Jane Street, they have the highest retention rate. But VivCorp, I think they pride themselves in you're allowed to make mistakes and they help you go through your mistakes. Tier three, they're not quant firms, they're banks that have quant divisions in them. So Bank of America, investment bank, JP Morgan, investment bank, Macquarie and Westpac are your traditional banks. So with these ones, it's going to be a different story. They're not really high frequency traders. They're called, I think, medium frequency traders, which means the trades are more of a longer term periods rather than nanoseconds, which are the top firms there.
cool. Let's dive into the actual breakdowns, I guess, a bit further into them. We'll be going tier by tier, comparing SWE to HFT as well. So starting with tier one in SWE, software engineering. As I said before, these companies, a majority of the FANGULA companies are in Australia. Only Amazon's in Brisbane. So I don't think Airbnb is in Australia nor LinkedIn. I do know that Netflix is in Australia. However, Netflix, you don't aim for them for grads and internships because they take really well experienced people. But people like Amazon, they take interns and grads. Meta takes more people like graduated for a bit, so not in their graduate roles. For Google, they do take pre-penultimates, penultimates, and grads. But yeah, Microsoft, they're here in Brisbane. Generally speaking, how I classify these companies are like a good resume and cover letter will really help you like break into these loops. And your cover letter actually matters quite a bit for these companies because they have to base something off of like the resume they see. If they see that you have a 7.0 GPA, that you have like a bunch of projects, cool. What makes you so different from everyone else? So they like to see that competitive edge, your niche side. They want to know more about you. So a cover letter really just helps define who you are. Once again, they're highly competitive, so in their interviews, you typically see data structures and algorithms and system design questions as well. So you really want to prepare for those types of questions. And again, with the styles, you'll get an online assessment, so that's an OA. Typically speaking, it's usually just like a HackerRank style like activity. You get like an hour or 2 hours to do it. Some companies like Amazon, they actually bundle in a HackerRank in their OA with a psychometric test, and that goes to like 4 hours, so it's a bit longer there, but that's your OA. And then after that, you do your technical and behavioral interviews, and all of them do technical and behavioral. Then yeah, with these companies, the reason they're at tier one is because you have a strong starting base for your grad programs, and they actually usually have a pretty good compensation package too because of their global presence. And that's what also brings them up to tier 1 again. Because you talk about any of these companies around the world, you're more than likely to know who they are. But yeah, they usually have the structured grad and intern programs, but Sydney is a regional hub for most of them.
Okay, so T1 HFT, everyone wants to get in. How do you get in? I'll start with the meaning of what high frequency trading is. So basically, what you do as a high frequency trader, or they call market making, is your decisions are based on algorithms that execute within nanoseconds, and there are FPGAs that execute those algorithms. And your purpose is to provide liquidity to a market. So the whole point of I talk to some of the IMC people, the way they do it, every trade they do is to get information from other traders, and they use that information to either determine, does this person know more than me, and do they have an edge over me? Therefore, they might, through trading with them, I can get that information, or is this person possibly trolling me on the market? So that's their whole job basically, and that's why they get paid very high for it. Now to get in, you have to have at least a 6. So if you're under a 6, you're going to get auto screened. Except for Jane Street. Jane Street doesn't look at your GPA, but they have some other requirements that I'm not too sure of. They tend to be, I guess, strange in how they select, because some people who on paper look very cracked are getting rejected, but some other people that you don't expect to get in do get in. So they have a very interesting criteria. I think they're after problem solvers in an abstract meaning. So how does the interview process work? All of them will send you an online assessment. So Optiva, for example, will put you through a 1 hour and a half online assessment, depending on if you're software engineering or trading. So software engineering, you're going to get lead code. Trading, you're going to get sequence test. So it's going to be a sequence going on, whether it's fractions or odd numbers, even numbers, and you have to guess what the next number is going to be. Sometimes it could be random or noise, and you have to ignore it, and you have to look at certain patterns. Second step of that, it's going to be probability problems. So you need to know your probability really well. So after your online assessment, you'll go into your behavioral. So it's typically a 15 to 30 minute Zoom call. Different firms have different ways of going about it. I know for Optima they ask more competitive questions like why, demonstrate a time you have competitive drive, etc. They're after more egoists in a sense, people who aim for the top. So, and then after that, that's when the real challenge begins. You're going to be in a technical interview. Now, in the technical interview, some firms will intentionally be rude to you to put you under pressure. That's the whole stick of it. They're going to be blunt. There's going to be no emotion. They're going to ask you rapid fire questions, and you're going to think, wow, this guy's a genuine asshole, right? But no, they're actually really nice people outside of the interview, but they're trying to put you through a training environment where if you mess up, you don't let your emotions get the hang of you, and you can just keep going, knowing that you've messed up. With these problems as well, it's all in your head. No pen and paper, no calculator, rapid fire. So it could be brain teasers, probability problems. There's a couple of books that I'm going to talk about later that explain this really well. And then some places, I think that's not Citadel. Citadel do an online super week, but Fifth Court and Jane Street will fly you to their office for a fun around super day. So super day is basically back to back to back interviews. So you might do a behavioral, then a technical, then a leadership, sort of panel where there's 2 traders and a recruiter sitting and they're just seeing how you respond under pressure. It's similar to your online technical, but they might push your limits a bit harder. And then and then there's a final panel interview, which is typically just housekeeping. They're just seeing. They might ask you off the book behavioral questions, but it's very, very similar to your behavioral. Just you can have 4 traders just grilling you for absolutely no reason. But yeah, that's for the T1 firms there.
Cool. Let's move on to tier 2 for software engineering. So as you can see up there, I classified this as the only scale-ups and global tech with Australian dev teams, but they can go of course. So who is that? Atlassian Canva Zero. Those are your main ones, right? Everyone uses Canva, uses PowerPoint on Canva, for example. But yeah, they have strong engineering teams and pretty good compensation, but they're just not quite at that big tech and HFT scale because, if you take Google for example, they have a real big competitive edge, whether it's on your browser, whether it's on maps or anything like that. But with Atlassian, they're not the only like tool people use for products. It's actually quite a debatable topic. So that's kind of how they're tiered as well in this like situation. But also on top of that, it's your pay, how competitive you are, and with Atlassian and Canva, they're a bit more lenient on it, despite some controversy over the years of how they can um, with Atlassian, it goes, you do an online assessment, you either do well or you don't. Typically speaking, you don't need like full marks for it, but typically like they want it, better people are getting. And then after that, you have your technical assessment. So when you apply for Atlassian, for example, you will select whether you want to go through the front end or the back end loop. And then you do your technical assessment there. You can do Google or whatever, but you have to have your screen shared with the recruiter. After that, it's final round, which is a behavioral. So it's a bit less intensive, I would say, in the sense that they're pretty forgiving about you not knowing something. They're actually more than happy to help you in this situation, whereas some companies, if you don't know your stuff, even if the person helps you and you show that you're really good at like problem solving, they'll be like, well, we know someone better that can actually do their shit. Yeah, these are also really amazing places to start. Great work culture, usually great like experiences. And Atlassian and Canva, I know Zero's in Melbourne. I'm not too sure about where else in Australia, but Atlassian and Canva they have remote like locations as well. So like it's based in Brisbane, it's based in Sydney. I think there's some co-working space in Melbourne as well. It's pretty well scattered, but yeah, they have grad and intern programs too, but they're just not as like I guess popular as big tech.
Alright, so with tier 2 firms, it's going to be a very similar process. I know this course explicitly because I think, in the third round right now. It's before the final one, I've lost count. But basically, the compensation is a bit lower, so I know for Viv courts around I think 180k starting for the traders, and maybe just a slightly bit less for the engineers, compared to say Optiva, which is like 250k starting, and your bonus. This is from the Optiva recruiters' words. The top performing grads, I think last year earned up to 780k for the year. So yeah, big difference in pay, but your bonus is usually the big gap. Same interview process, know your maths, know your algorithms, so we go into software engineering. This course interview process for software engineering is actually really sick. So you start with leak code, and then you get a take-home assessment. So you get a week to do that the assessment, and then your final interview is they ask you, what did you do in your take-home assessment? Can you explain your reasoning? And I found that super cool because I think that's how interviews should be. Like I personally am a bit of a leak code hater. But yeah, Bitcoin does like they do it a bit different with their interview process. Flow traders, it's a bit. Oh man, I didn't like the interview process. It's really hard. It's a big grind to be honest. These are the two books that I've read for if you want to go into trading or software engineering. So for trading, I actually have this book in my bag. I can whip it out later. It's a practical guide to quantitative finance interviews. It's nicknamed the Green Book. Everyone knows about it. Everyone that wants to get into HFT knows about it. Give it a read. It's really, really good. And then for software engineering, you need to know your operating systems. So, like IMC is really big into distributed networks. OS is really tends to be brought up when I talk to some of the interns. Like it's a very important topic. So if you know OS 2310, you know like a bit of like basics of networks, like it should be good. And yeah, compensations is good. Both of these places, or all three of them, do interns and grads. I know VivCorp just started to implement interns recently up here in Brisbane. So yes, that's the other thing. VivCorp software engineering is in Brisbane and Sydney. Trading, you have to go to Sydney.
Cool. Let's move on to tier 3, the second last tier that I stapled here in the software engineering realm. I like to put a fair few like random ones, like you see banks, you see telco, you see consulting. So though you might know these, and Deloitte is literally in the big 4 for consulting, it's not that big for tech. And that's because it is on tech first. So you're going to be working on different styles of solutions and solutions that may not as well be as technically challenging for you. And that goes more into like tier 4, but tier 3 is like you'll still be able to work on stuff, but it just won't be at that scale that accelerates your learning and growth like tier 1 and 2. But yeah, it's like more generalist software and dev where you have this delivery and stakeholder there's more focus on that because you have to think about customers like a lot more, even though like that's the whole point of it for tier 1 and 2. But this is just you can interact with customers more, and yeah, these interviews focus less on algorithms and technical fundamentals. For example, I did like A and Z last year. I don't even remember most of the interview process. All I know is I did like this little like online behavioral test, and then the next interview was just like it was like semi-behavioral where they just asked me all these behavioral questions, and then they asked me what tech have you worked in, and I thought there was another round, but the like next week was like, yo, you want to work with us? And it was like a proper software job. So don't sleep on these banks because they still offer you work. Like you shouldn't look at this at tier 3 and be like, damn, I didn't get into tier 1 and 2. I don't want to do software in these banks because honestly speaking, that mindset's not going to get you a job then. But yeah, honestly, don't sleep on these, especially if you're in first year. But yeah, that's tier 3 for you. Yeah.
I have something a bit to add to tier 3 as well. So I did Deloitte, not the internship, I did the pre-internship program, and I did a couple of interviews for, I think, I learned about my grad day, and I'm doing an internship this year, just a resume from them. Your internship's only 4 weeks, and the way they structure it is you do 2 projects. One in 2 weeks, and the other 2 weeks. So realistically, like think about what can you get done in like 2 weeks if that's not your project. So it's good to have like on the resume, but your projects aren't going to be as big as like big tech and that sort of stuff. All right, tier 3, medium frequency trading. So medium frequency trading tends to be more around the research sort of thing, where the strategies are a bit slower, so the trades execute over days, sometimes even weeks, like they're after long-term forecasts. And places that do that is investment banks and big four, not as in like the consulting companies, big four as in the banks like Comp Sci and Westpac. Their divisions are very niche, so they don't do interns and grads for quant specifically. Like there is software engineering. I'm not sure about the other banks. I know Bank of America has quant research, which is what I'm going through right now. And the way to get hired into the quant division is they're very small. You will likely have to get laterally hired within the department itself. So say you're a software engineer, you come into Combank, you do your internship, they're like, wow, you're so cool. And then you're like, hey, I want to work with the quants, is that okay? Likely they'll transfer you to the derivatives team, and then from there you can work with the quants. So the quants are just the little nerds that sit in a corner, and then they help the bankers like do their thing. That's how they treat the quants in those firms. Like I don't know if you guys watch The Big Short, but it's like that's it's like that's my quantitative. Like that's literally like how what their quants are. So yeah, they don't have internships. You'll have to network. You'll have to get laterally hired. And to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of them because of how network heavy they are. Like you'll have to really know someone in there to get into the firm. Like JP Morgan's infamous for this. Talk to anyone in Bath, and they'll tell you how hard it is to get in. But yeah, it's not as big as a tier 1.
Cool. Tier 4 and beyond. I guess before I go into this, once again, as I said, do not look at it and go tier 4 or 2. These roles, it's once again even more generalist than tier 3. So you might be looking at, say, tier 4 could be a government job, for example. Tier 4 could, and the reason government would be categorized in this is because generally in the industry, as we are speaking, because of the pace that the government works at, when an interviewer at a software product company looks at that, they see that you don't actually have experience in a faster paced environment. And so, generally speaking, people at companies in tier 3 and above, when they look at people that have worked government roles and nothing else, they kind of have this understanding that you don't know the right pace to work at for a customer. And that's just generally how it is, and they know how the inside works with government as well. And if you know anything about government jobs, you'll get the gist of that. Other things, tier 4 and beyond, like that could just be like a hackathon project even. It could be something you're working on for a full year. You could be working at a really early stage startup. It's just something that just helps boost you if you have absolutely nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you do look at things in tier 4 and beyond and you have multiple choices, really think about the value that they're going to be putting in you and think about what's going to give you that more long-term benefit and against essentially this launch pad to your future. You don't want to take something that is essentially going to actually put you in doom because once again, going back to government, a a lot of people actually get locked into government roles, and maybe that's where you want to be. But if you don't want to stay in government, but you have government offering as your only thing, really remember to like boost your projects, and we'll go into that later on. But that's just tier 4 and beyond. I don't think there was a tier 4 for HFT, was there?
No, like this is different industry.
Yeah. All right. Year by year roadmap. Let's go into that. I guess we both can talk. I'll go. Well, this is a great example. Grade 4 years. Yeah. So,
Excluding masters.
if you do a bachelor of computer science, straight up, what do you have? A 3-year degree if you're doing full time. Which you don't have to do. But typically, what is the penultimate? You've heard of the pens, you've heard of the ultimates. Penultimate is just essentially the second last, right? So second last in computer science is your second year, which is also just like the same both ways. So before second year, you have pre-penultimate, aka your first year, and ultimate year or final year is your third year in computer science. And with the 4-year program, I'll let Zain explain it.
Spoiler alert. So reason this is important is especially for those looking into HFT roles, there's a lot of programs available to you guys that help you jump from this to this in terms of getting an offer, which I'll get into very soon. If you're here, here's your GPA. That's all you need to do. But if you're here, my lord, I have some great news for you. Yeah, same deal with these two.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh,
Let's go on.
wow, I said you're going to hear about it very soon. So, pre-penultimate, a lot of these HFT firms are trying to snap talent very early. So, there's a lot of programs that basically, I shit you not, they pretend to be experience days, but there's going to be 10 recruiters sitting on the back noting down every action you do. So these programs are, Jane Street Portal, IMC Launchpad, Optiva Future Focus. I think that kind of happened to me at Deloitte. There's a SIG experience day as well. Basically, you need there's an interview process to get into these free internship programs. Yeah, I know it's crazy. You have to sit 3 rounds of interviews to get selected for a career experience day. But it's not a career experience day. Once you rock up, we're going to put you through puzzles or teamwork activities or coding challenges or lectures. And there's going to be recruiters sitting like this room. Pretend, there's a recruiter over there, right? They're going to be sitting there, and there's going to be someone here explaining something, and they're going to take notes. Does this person ask good questions? Does this person work good in a team? Is this person smart? Does this person have rocks for brains? What is this person? They're going to build a profile of you throughout the 3-day program. And then by the end of the program, and for future focus, they will come to you and say, hey, you're pretty good, want to intern for us next year. So you can get an internship offer from it. IMC Launchpad, they'll evaluate your your skills, and then they'll put you through the internship interviews, depending on how good you are. If you're like crack, they'll put you final round and see how you go. If you're, I don't know, a bit skippy, let's say that, then they'll put you through the entire process. So from round 1 to round 6, right? Jane Street Portal, got rejected. But yeah, similar process. I don't know what they do afterwards. Citadel and SIG do the same thing. Now, do you want to start with tips for software?
Yeah. I guess just really on to Jane Street Portal. From my understanding, Jane Street Portal isn't actually where they recruit. That's what the recruiters said to me. They just said they wanted people to know what Jane Street was. Allegedly, by the way, allegedly.
Description said different.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it said, it's got internship offers from this or something.
Yeah. Speak to recruiters, they'll tell you one thing, you'll hear another. Anyways, going on the software end. So what can you do in your pre-penultimate year to start preparing to get a role? There's a few things, of course. I'm a big advocate for trying to pick up roles, whether it's in a general committee, whether it's in like an upper tier or whatever, or even higher. Do hackathons, even if they're not tech focused. You'd be shocked how much people love seeing that you can actually make a business proposal even. Because ultimately, you can make an idea, if you can plan that out, people will love to see that skill working in a team. Who knew that would be useful? Especially when you do that to 30 to 1 and you have teammates that have never been. That's pretty useful. At a very minimum, learn like the basics of Git. Learn how to use GitHub. Some people get out of this degree and never use GitHub and don't know how. Basic web dev, that would be nice. Python and Java. And it's very nice to know that before you maybe start getting roles. And showing people in interviews is nice. Python is great though for interviews. I think it's very quick, very fast, and it's the thing that most pre-penultimates would know. And you can create a personal portfolio site if you'd like. At this point, it might not have much, but it's nice like practice again to get that basic web dev skills. And I didn't do this personally, but I would suggest if you can, start lightly code practice. It's nice to try. If you can do it, that's great. I personally didn't, but I would suggest do it.
Alright, so for HFT, there's a lot of things you can start doing. So practice brain teasers, basic probability. If your electives allow you, take a stat course. So I suggest Econ 205 because it's the same as 2003, just way better taught. Because I don't know if I can say this on stream, but I'm not a fan of how 2003 is taught. It's a bit old. I hated that course. I did both, so I can tell you, like, 205 was way better taught. Learn to do problems without pen and paper or a calculator. So when I got the final round for Optima, and they said like no calculator allowed, I felt like a kid on crutches, and someone just kicked my crutches off. I'm like, no, my calculator, I'm nothing without my calculator. Turns out yes, yeah, they'll only give you 2 minutes to do the problems, and you need to do all that in your head. Even like student element said, oh, can I use my pen and paper? I'm like, I don't think you need it for this stage, but sure. And they're like already judging me. They're like, oh, this guy is like pretty stupid. He needs an iPad to do this question. Horrible. But yes, try and do things in your head. Here's the thing, you don't need the correct answer. You need to be close to the correct answer. That's all you care about. It's a margin of error, like plus or minus 5%. You need to get close to it. And they're like, okay, this guy who's on the floor, you don't have to be exact, but you need to be 90% of the way there to know what direction you have to go. Try and get a free penultimate internship if you can. There is a lot of firms that take first years. Like, like if I got 6, those 6 places were willing to take first years. Like as Masham said, hackathons really good to put on your resume, really good to make mates with as well. There's the other competitions going around. You can also join a student team. So as my shirt says, I'm part of UQ Racing. I think it was the single one thing that was brought up in all my interviews because like I was able to put it in work experience, like working on an autonomous car and programming an autonomous car. And most importantly, keep your GPA above a 6, ideally at 6.5 if you want to be competitive. This was IMC's recruiter. When I was chatting through in the text, is like, I'm looking for high 6s. I'm like, oh man, I'm just making my life so tough. Right? Aim above a 6.5 and it should be sweet, and your world is your oyster. You said that right.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention, there is a pre-penultimate program for Swave. It's called Google Step. A big disclaimer about what Google Step is. I know the applications are not out, I believe. It's not a traditional internship in the sense you get a return offer. A return offer meaning that they'll let you come back in the summer. It's just an experience with Google over a 12-week period over the summer, but it puts something on your resume. But yeah, it's not a traditional internship, but it's like kind of like this stuff, but it's over 12 weeks. Yeah, I guess I'll just hit for this one. Penultimate. This is it's your second last year before graduating. We've covered that. This is a pretty important part of your degree, especially if you're in CS and your second year. This is actually the most important time to be applying. I would suggest getting like an Excel spreadsheet out and just tracking literally everything you apply to and telling if you got rejected or not, or just ghosted. Because stuff happens. So the primary focus you want to be doing in your penultimate year is have this internship tracker, regularly practice code, develop really good data structures and algorithms, and system design understandings, whether that's just through YouTube or whatever. Ultimately, just become a good communicator throughout this year, whether you're just talking to your friends, making new friends, and do the stuff I told in this slide before. Take on those experiences more. Tailor your resume and cover letter as well to each company and role. So every single time, I know this is a big pain. Me personally, every single role I've ever applied to, I've tailored my resume and cover letter. What is a cover letter? It's imagine an email, but like it's just like an email blur like of your resume, but in a nicer way to convince the person to hire you. That's just what a cover letter is. You can just Google what is a structure like. And prepare behavioral answers for interviews. So the good thing about this, UQCS has mock interviews coming up in week 8. I have no memory of what date. I think it's April 17th. We also have behavioral next week. So if you feel like you're lacking in the behavioral stage, we can help you next week. Or mock interviews, that's where we actually have proper industry people come into UQ and be like, hey, I'm going to interview you. We like allocate you random companies, whether that be Atlassian, SwiftX, whoever we decide to bring in. And then, yeah, you just like do a 15-minute interview with a real industry person. Some people have actually gotten hired or put into a hiring loop, like for HFT, even from that like little event. That was pretty cool. But yeah, and I guess networking as well. We have industry panel. That is in 2 weeks' time. So we have cool companies like everything. We have Amazon coming. We have Food Court coming. We have SwiftX, Oracle, and Boeing as well. But yeah, those are the main things. I just highly suggest network, get your volunteer stuff off. That's all for this one.
Right. With HFT, same deal as last year. Just grind a bit harder. More problems, do harder problems. Read the book, the green book, cover to cover. Again, if you read it once, not enough. Again. Enter training competitions. So prosperity is the big one. IMC prosperity. I think FinTech do Algo Jam as well. I did that one last year. It's pretty fun. Prosperity is the big one. Apparently, the top 40, top 25 get prizes. Top 40 get contacted by recruiters. I know someone at another university that's already an IMC Launchpad because they did prosperity last year. And I'm like, hey, you're pretty smart. Do you want to go to this program? If you're in a penultimate and you do well on prosperity, I think you might get a call to do interview processes for the internship. So it starts April 7th. So if you haven't found a team, you're gonna love it. It's a good competition. It's a lot of time though, so you don't have time. Make some time. Read options theory books. I neglected this point until I wanted to sit it up, and the guy asked me an options theory question, and I literally went up to him and said, "What's an option?" I was like, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" And he had to like explain it to me. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right. I'll put a contract here and blah blah blah." Start a good strategy I found that other traders started doing as well. Interview with your least favorite firms first. Get that practice. So then, like, you know where you're deficient at, and then go interview with the firms you actually want. So, like, say for example, I don't want to interview. I don't want to work at Flow Traders, right? Like, it's like I love to work there, but it's at the bottom of my tier list. I'll interview for them first, see how far I go, know where I messed up, and then go like spend 2 weeks learning whatever I messed up in. Go apply to the next firm, rinse and repeat. For quant research, which is it's like data science but on crack. You need to be very good with your ML and data science. They'll give you I know Optimus sent you like a 1-week project, and then you need to write like a really good report about it. So do Stat 3006, as infamous as that course is, and as much as I didn't like that course last year, it was the most helpful course in my data science internship. Like I learned so much in it. Comp 4702, do it, but it's not going to teach you that much. Comp 3702 is good. The Bellman equation in that course is very good to solve some of these brain teaser problems on the go. I found I had to use it for a couple of my interviews. I'm like, oh my god, I almost cheated my way through that course, but like now I know how to use it. And Stat 4406, so for some of you that are doing maths or have an elective spot, it is a very hard stat course. I wanted to do it, but it doesn't count to my hex, so I have to take a loan to take this course. But it's really good. It's such a good course for quant research because he learns stochastic processes, which are very important for that
Sure.
role.
Let's go on. Oh, that was a sneak peek. Sorry. Let's go on to ultimate. AKA final year. So now, like me, you're in your final year. You may have finished an internship already. If you haven't, that's okay. Typically speaking, though, in that gap between obviously your penultimate year and your final year, if you do take an internship, typically speaking, you have the journey to a return offer. Now, not everyone gets a return offer, and honestly, that's fine because if it's your first experience, especially in like the working industry, you're going to be going through some stuff. You're going to be in an environment that uni's never prepared you for because I'm going to be honest, industry is nothing like what they teach you at UQ or any university for that matter. You will be put through stuff that you didn't even know was possible. But all that matters is you end up learning and you know how to collaborate with people. Okay. That's cool. Let me think of an example really quickly. I think it's mainly like the team learning dynamic. So if you're working at a product company and you're delivering to customers, you don't really like realize how important certain types of feature flagging is, or internal tools. Internal tools at a company is something you will literally not know beforehand, and sometimes the processes of like building an API, like a bulk API, you'll just never encounter that at uni. Uni, especially based on the subjects you take, and that goes on to a whole other topic, which is choose subjects that are good for you and that will be beneficial for your postgrad life. But if you don't, that's fine. But yeah, for me personally, I feel like there are times where I felt like the subjects I chose didn't like benefit me too much in like my like internship, for example. But sometimes certain subjects, like CSSC 2310, actually gave me a competitive edge in interviews. So it really just depends on everything. Certain companies you're gonna find it easier, certain you're not. But it's all dependent on the type of volunteering experience and projects you do to really like prepare you for the internships. Ultimately, if you do have an internship and you're trying to secure a return offer, do not stop talking to your manager and take that initiative, because ultimately, like your manager and if you have a mentor, your mentor are going to decide whether you come back or not. And if you're not like being buddy buddy with them and asking, hey, what have I done wrong during this internship? Tell me anytime I slip up, I really want this return offer. They're probably going to think you're not that serious and you're just not going to get it. Sometimes financial needs are a factor too, but typically speaking, just be on the same page. So that's like in between penultimate and ultimate. But if you go into your final year, there's quite a few things you want to have done or be doing by the time you graduate. Here are some examples that I put in. So me personally, what I'm trying to do is in my final year, I've gone part-time because I did a shit ton of some summer semesters and whatever. So I have the option to do that. So I can actually potentially, if I want to find a job that does it, work part-time as a software developer somewhere else or try to gain connections. Because for me, the goal there is when I graduate, if I want to get a promotion faster, I can be like, hey, I have industry experience actually. I can get my promotion faster. And they're like, yep, let's do it. But yeah, before the end of your degree, I do suggest in your final year, make sure you've done an exchange trip if it's in the financial means for you. If not, they're usually scholarships for like New Columbo Plan. That's only for Australian citizens. But UQ Ventures trips, for example, they're typically UQ funded as well. So that can go to any student. So trip I went on, NCT Dalian trip with Eats. Also UQ Ventures startups and UQ Ventures programs, clubs and society stuff. Tutoring, if you can do it, that's cool to have done by your final year. EIT ambassador position if you really want. There's cool programs at UQ, leaders at EIT. So that one is you actually collaborate with a bunch of people within the faculty and you go out. Like in my year in 2022, we went out to Gatton on a camp for like 3 days. We made like a little project, like a pitch, and then Rio Tinto was part of the whole thing. So like we camp for a second or third, whatever. More leadership stuff, and this little thing here. I don't know if y'all can see it, but employability award. So the employability award is nice in the sense that you get something extra when you graduate. You can only get it while you're in uni. Typically, applications for it close like a couple months into the semester you're going to graduate. What is it? It's just like an extra thing that proves how much you've done during the time at uni. So there's quite a few requirements into it, such as how much volunteer hours have you done, how much actual work experience that is paid have you done, all that jazz. So I know in like software engineering you have to do 450 work placement hours, but imagine employability award is like 4x like how hard that is. So it's just a nice thing to like flex, I guess, and it sounds cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Polish your LinkedIn up as well. I think that people underestimate like how important LinkedIn can be. Like every single time I apply to something, I almost immediately see like recruiter from Jane Street, read your profile. I'm like, okay, cool. Didn't even know they viewed it that fast. But yeah, update your LinkedIn. Make sure you have something on your GitHub because you can't just link your GitHub on your resume and just have nothing on it. That doesn't make sense. Portfolio. Once again, if you have a nice portfolio, you can showcase your skills as well. That's cool. But yeah, work experience, volunteer experience, just yeah. Try to resume max, but really try to make it valuable as well. Yeah. You can, yeah, you can just have stuff on your LinkedIn. You don't have to be active. Like a recruiter doesn't want to see the last thing you have on your LinkedIn is like your high school, for example. They just want to see stuff, and it's also a great means. Like if you feel like your resume is really full, you can use your LinkedIn to put like the other stuff in. I've been asked about stuff on my LinkedIn before. before that wasn't actually on my resume. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know this about me? Cool. So yeah, that's it for history. Sorry. I'll let Zain take on HFT now.
I think I want to link to the point as well. You know the open to work banner? Like, it might seem desperate to turn it on, right? Like, do it like when you're like penultimate, ultimate, or like second year. Because it turns out recruiters actually like actively look for people who have that turned on. So I turned it on and immediately got offered like a lead engineer full-time position in Milton. And I'm like, cool, but I can't do full-time, sorry. Like they actually do reach out to you if you turn that thing on and you've built your LinkedIn, because that's basically your resume online and that's how they get to see you. So once you've like built a portfolio, it's not like definitely turn it on, and like some recruiters will just hit you up on the fly and be like, hey, it's good for like intro roles if you're interested as well. Yeah. Like as in like listing it as a skill on LinkedIn, or like as a bullet point under. Yes. Like it depends if you've done it before, like I guess coming to uni and stuff. Like say for example you worked retail before coming to university and you're still working retail. I found if you keep that job there, like say you've worked there for longer than 2 or 3 years, like bosses love that. Like it shows you've worked, you've kept the job for longer than a year. So therefore, you know what a job entails. It's not your first job, and you know how to take responsibility. And it's pretty good. I reckon. Yeah. Keep it there. What if you work like yeah, any job. If you've worked there for a while, like you've maintained the job for a long time. So I wouldn't put it on your tech, like on your actual resume for applications. Only if you only like put it there if you've been there for longer than like 3 years to show that hey, I've had a job for a very long time. But typically, like with those sorts of jobs, like for example, my job, I've worked 5 years at JB. I just kept one bullet point just to show hey, I've kept the job for 5 years. That's cool. Would you say that employees would actually view technical experience? No, it depends on the role. So if you're applying to like, I know I've applied to Formula One. Formula One would view you more favorably. But software engineering, they're like, oh, cool, he's worked at this job for a long time. They're more interested in what's above it, like projects, grades, sort of thing. So the whole thing. But anyways, for HFT, it's the same as penultimate. If you're after the investment banking firms, make sure you've done some of their case competitions. They tend to recruit out of that from what I heard. And the thing is, they might quiz you on financial modeling concepts. So what's a DCF, that sort of stuff. Learning that sort of stuff, I found it cringe trying to learn that stuff. I'm like, oh my god, it's just simple math formulas that people are crossing over. But just know it. It's like similar to like a leak code, right? Like just know it. They might quiz you on it, and then you might move to your technical aspect later on. Because say like you do super well on the technical, and then they ask you a financial modeling concept, and you're like, GG's, right? Don't let that happen to you. But yeah, same thing. Just know your stuff. Grads, depending on some, do go through more rounds than the interns, so they might put you under more pressure because they're like, this guy just graduated. Let's just see how much we can push him or her or whoever they are. But yes, similar to penultimate, just keep working, keep interviewing, do the tier list of firms, and yeah, and also talk to the recruiter. I know, like with grads, like if you talk to the recruiter and tell them about how you went, what you are at your application process, and if they know you and if they like you, they might help you out. Like for example, at IMC, I've had a note put on my application. Like if I failed at an internship interview, keep an eye out for this guy for the Launchpad applications. They will do that sort of stuff for you. So do network with the recruiters. It is pretty important.
Speaking of, we have an IMC collaboration with Cogen in May 10th, I think. So I don't know if the recruiters will be there, but we'll have 2 reps. Once again, we have a bunch of events coming up with industry people. Before I move on to the next slide, I do want to just mention something I forgot. I'll say the rest at the end when we give our tips, but like definitely put everything there. So for context, Amazon in Brisbane is Amazon Grocery, and there's also AWS. But Amazon Grocery, because it's on Grocery Solutions. There's no Amazon Grocery in Brisbane, so you work on Amazon Grocery Solutions overseas. I worked at Woolworths in high school. Now, I did not realize that me mentioning Woolworths would have actually been helpful in my interview. So I think when I was doing my behavioral interview with Amazon, they were just mentioning stuff about like the actual click and collect system or whatever in Amazon. I'm like, oh yeah, I actually know this because I worked at Woolworths for like a few years in high school. They're like, what? And then yeah, it just goes to show like these little experiences. They like if you have familiarity with it in like such a random context, because that's me having retail experience and then being able to apply that understanding to help customers as well and like employees in that like situation. But yeah, cool stuff. Keep your stuff if it's relevant enough. Not many people know about this, but if you do, you've probably seen the article. I like to call this the four axes, aka Nicholas Lambert likes to call it the four axes. Who is Nicholas Lambert? He's actually the UQCS president from 2019, and in fact, an honorary life member of UQCS. But yeah, if you want to know more about this article, this little link right here will take you to it. It's called Getting That Grad/Intern Role. It's on the CSE SOC website, like the newsletter on Google, which is the UNSW equivalent of UQCS. Anyways, what does this mean? So we have our four main things: work experience, personal projects and open source, academic performance, and club involvement. It is said that if you want to be able to have peace of mind in getting a role, then having three of these is nice. So work experience, club involvement, personal projects, and open source, for example. But if you really excel at two of them, that's fine as well. So it's just to show that sometimes academic performance is not all that. Of course, with HFTs, it's a bit different. But this is relevant for interns and graduates. What I'm saying is, if you believe you don't have a great GPA, you can compensate for that. How? If you have really good club involvement and work experience, or personal projects and club involvement, and not necessarily work experience. Because ultimately, if you're in your pre-penultimate year, you're not going to have a lot of work experience, but you can still get that competitive edge with the club involvement and personal projects and open source stuff. So that's a pretty cool thing. Open source as well. If you do Comp 3710, you get to do some like work on GitHub and like show, hey, I can do open source stuff. So yeah, this is just like a little quadrant and to remember on your journey. And I do believe that reading this article is really nice as well, just to get some peace of mind and during your interview process. But yeah, that's all I have to say for that. Do you have anything to say? Yeah, cool. Let's move on. Personal tips. Okay. Since I'm up there, I'll do it. So I just want to give some context on my experience, of course. So when I joined uni, I wasn't in a Bachelor of Computer Science. I was in Bachelor of Biomedical Science once I finally started uni. In my second month at uni, I was immediately the medicine officer at the UQ Association of Biomedical Students. So that's a club involvement immediately from like month 2. And FYI, you're not at uni for the full month of February. So that's pretty early. After that, I obviously had a break in the winter, then started thinking about maybe I should do CS, whatever. Immediately off the bat, went to networking events, every single club event I could think of. I went to a UQCS Hackathon Information Night actually in this room. That was like one of my first CS event things. But just started to slowly get involved in like club stuff. Did the Leaders at EIT program. Then I went into like checking out what startups are like. So I did StartMate Student Fellowships. Some of you may have heard of that. Some of you may have not. It's just a summer where you get to like see what startups work like from the inside, and you get to develop like a cool pitch and process thing at the end of it. I got to pitch to the chair at Tesla. That was pretty cool. But yeah. Then after that, I worked on becoming the president of UQ Rally Labs, which is an XR club, and I have been that since 2023 April. It's been a while. But yeah, that's my niche there. And I guess segueing into that, I like to say that you need to build a niche. Once again, as I mentioned before, you need to be your own person. And for me, I like to think of myself as someone who is quite creative. Computer science, I believe, is a combination of both logic and art. So XR, photography, film, and art. Those are my main interests. And XR strongly exhibited through the UQ Reality Labs club for me. Every single interview, they're like, that is so cool. We don't know anyone who does that. And the best part about it was that we were able to say we were the first student club in Australia to be doing that. And we won awards. So it just, when you have like about yourself. You want to show your passion towards it and the drive that led to the great results about it. That's the main thing. Additionally from that, I did go on exchange and performed well. Once again, performance. I've tried to maintain high performance in everything I've done so that it doesn't seem like I'm just doing this shit for like a resume farm once again, but I actually am trying here to be the best person I can. Because ultimately, if you resume farm, it can be a bit obvious, but if you resume farm with intent, it's a little less obvious. But yeah, I went on exchange and performed well. I then became the new Columbia Plan Chief Alumni Ambassador last year, which is like, there's only 2 of them at UQ, and there's only 1 leader, and I was the leader. What I got to do was I actually got paid to travel around. I went to Singapore for free, went to a little tech conference here and there, and yeah, did some talks. So that was pretty cool again. But the reason why I think exchange is important and why it worked for me is because I went on exchange to China. The recruiters and like my interviewers always think it's pretty cool that I was able to communicate with this language barrier with Chinese students as well, because it was like EP and Chinese students. And once again, exchange gives you a global skill set, especially if you're working on a tech project. And lastly, my biggest tip to anyone, I connect the point there by accident, don't be afraid of competition and being perceived. I know a lot of people hate to actually do stuff because then they're perceived, I guess. Like, oh, you're doing this. We know that you're doing this. It's just like a fear. And I understand it's a fear that you can have, especially if you're socially introverted, but when you want to get a competitive edge, you have to step outside your comfort zone. Because if you stay within your comfort zone, you will never grow beyond that. And if you want to grow as a person, you will need to step out with your own 2 feet and do that. But yeah, that's it for my experience.
Right, so for my ones, especially if you're a first year pre-penultimate, apply to everything. You can't be picky. You don't have the option to be picky. It is pretty competitive out there. So I actually had a friend, he's very smart, he's like a robotics engineer, very, very good with slang and that sort of stuff. He didn't get an internship anyway because he was just picky. He would not apply. He would say, I want to work for these guys. He's like a first year. Even though he's a crack developer, can like recite C++ in his sleep. He didn't get anything because he's just too picky. If you're too picky, you'll get nothing. It's a numbers game. So if in your first year, if you see something that says IT or anything in the like title, apply with it. Something is better than nothing, and it could help you get closer to where you want to be. Go to networking events, connect with all the firms, make sure the recruiters know who you are, learn communication skills. I've seen, I've been to a lot of career fairs, and I kid you not, I've seen people walk up to the recruiter, like say, hi, my name is this, and it's like an awkward silence of 10 seconds between, they can't keep a conversation going, or they ask, like, any questions okay, but like make sure the questions you ask are like pretty good. Like I've had people go to recruiters and say, so what do you actually do? Like sort of thing. Like what is your salary? I'm like, bro, like you don't. That's not the first question you ask a recruiter. I think I remember like at one of the Jane Street dinners, like someone was into an argument with one of the recruiters, and he proceeded to call Jane Street boutique. I'm like, bro, that's just because they didn't have a lot of employees, and he's like, oh, so you guys must be a boutique firm. And I'm like, bro, like what the hell? Like you don't do that. So learn communication skills, learn how to talk to people, learn how to keep a conversation going. Join one of the UQ student teams. So racing was probably one of the lead contributing factors to me getting any offers last year. Literally like putting on my resume that I was a software engineer for a racing team. Developing all the cool stuff I got to develop for them. And it was brought up in every single one of my interviews. Like I remember in my T's interview, my boss literally asked me to explain autonomous path planning algorithm from the bottom up. I was like, I didn't really work on it that much, but sure. Yes, like they're very like the skills you learn from space or racing are very sought after by a lot of industries. You get exposed to a lot of hard problems through them. Also for your first internship, and it goes back in hand with apply to everything you can, you will likely get into a field you don't want. So, and in my case, I got into mining as a data scientist. I don't like dealing with mining truck data. I could give 2 craps about the mining trucks dumping coal and loading coal. It paid well, but like the data was pretty bad to deal with, and it wasn't an industry I wanted to stay in like for too long either. Some of the other places I go, I got like a backend web developer internship as well. I hate backend. I don't want to work in backend. Like in particular, like I'm not like I think a bit different to a lot of people. I'm not a software like engineer minded person. I've said like to a couple of people, the only company I would work as a software engineer for is writing games. Like otherwise, like I actually don't enjoy being a software engineer personally. But I do enjoy Valorant, so definitely I'll work with writing games. Grades matter in your first year if you don't have a project. So it's a seesaw. If you're above a 5 and you have a lot of projects, you should be fine to at least get an online assessment in most places. HFT, it's unfortunate you're going to have to keep that 6. But if you don't have any projects, then the only thing that's going to be good on your resume is your grades. So you're going to have to balance between, hackathon projects, personal projects if they're big enough. If you make a calculator, there's like a million people that made a calculator. It's nothing special. Build something you love. Build something that you can explain and show your passion to your interviewer through the interview. This is a bit of a like controversial tip from myself because it's like a common mentality within HFT. Have a competitive ego. Be willing to put yourself first over other people. I suffer from a bit of an issue where like I don't like have fun when I code or make algorithms. I only know winning or losing. That's the only two feelings I know when I'm in work mode or I'm like in my CS class. I'm either winning, getting a 7, getting internships, or I'm losing and I have to get better. There's no fun in between. And the thing is, it sounds like a bit toxic, but I know the moment I started doing this, I got an interview at every HFT firm. So it works for some people, but take this with a grain of salt because if you push it too far, if you go too far, you can either come across as an asshole, or you will burn yourself out very, very quickly. I know friends that have been burnt out because they're trying to outdo everyone in the cohort, and there's a saying in uni: there's always someone smarter than you. So even though like I'd love to be one of the smartest people, it is a very taxing mentality, and if you're willing to put yourself through that, you will get a lot out of it. But you don't have to do this to get what you want. Everyone walks different paths. Everyone will get to where they want to be through different means. Like you don't have to. This was actually a good piece of advice I got from a JP Morgan banker. Not everyone will get through the internship and the grad and then become a banker. Some people get laterally hired. Some people do a master's or an MBA and then get hired. And she basically gave me the piece of advice: if you miss these programs, it's fine. There's always a way in later on.
Yeah. Everything has been said. I think that's it, really. Yeah. So we're opening the board Q&A. That is that. If you are lacking the cracking the behavior, we do have a session this time next week on cracking the behavior. But if anyone has any questions now, feel free to raise your hand. Or if you don't want to raise your hand, you can come up and talk to us. The floor is open. Yes. All right. I'm taking that as a